Today we got a headline from Trump Media and Technology Group that they will merge with TAE Technologies. For those of you who do not know, Trump Media is kind of the overall company that's behind Truth Social. They also have some other, I believe they have an ETF. They've got some other financial products, etc. And then TAE Technologies has been focusing on building out fusion power. So a couple of different buzzwords that you're seeing there, but this is an all-stack transaction. It's in the headline there, valued at more than $6 billion. I believe the end goal here is stockholders, shareholders of Trump Media and of TAE Technologies end up with about a 50-50 share of the equivalent joint merged company. So really when you start to see some of this stuff, my first thought is, what is going on? Why does Trump Media Group think that they have some type of a alpha generation or some better idea on how to create fusion than other companies? But I think, Matt, you threw it out there. They probably don't. um, but I'm gonna flip over to
Almost certainly don't. Yeah, yeah. There's no nuclear degrees. You look at if everybody remembers from the first Trump administration, one of the key talking heads on your cable news channel, Devin Nunes, was in the House. He's now become involved. He's going to be co-CEO of this. So just looking up his background, his undergrad degree, his bachelor's degree, his family history, they're in agriculture and farming. They're not at all proficient in a cutting edge technology like nuclear fusion, which for the last 50, 60 years, we've always been 10 years away from being 10 years away, it seems. So, yeah, it's always right around the corner, one of these things. To think about, all right, where does this asset belong? So, what is this TAE things for background? Cameron, you're about to get into it, but this is like I mean, call it like a research funded. Like it started out as venture, right? Venture capital flowing into the industry. Google had a investment here from its venture arm, or Alphabet, Chevron. There's some other notable names behind this. They've put 1.3 billion into this startup project, which I'll get into this, but it still is like not even close to commercial viability at this point. Timelines, I just through my own AI search, Q&A, all of that, suggests maybe 2030 to 2035. So we're talking 5 to 10 years away, kind of still jibing. This thing is always just right around the corner, but not really. The announcement today, the articles, the messaging, all of that, they're saying, oh no, this is 2026. We're going to develop the first commercial facility, all of that. Start thinking, what in the world is going on here, right? If this is really like cutting edge, you know, advancement in energy production, all of that, as fusion is supposed to be, right? Or has like held the branding as for multiple decades now. Why is this thing not going into the hands of, say, like your existing proficient companies in nuclear energy, like GE Vernova, Hitachi,
yeah.
all of those, the Emerson, et cetera. Like, why are they not the ones deploying in here? Why is it Trump Media's social media company is basically a hollow shell, um, buying up this energy asset, marketing a massively rosy timeline to like essentially what this amounts to is retail investors who buy like this meme stock is really what it is. Um, so this is just my interpretation of what's going on. I tend to try to read these things with a much more zoomed out historical perspective on how these situations go, just based on incentives and how operators have acted in other eras. There's nothing new under the sun. As always, there's just different players, different stories, different timelines, slightly different technologies. But just zooming out, what is this thing, TAE? If you go in and look at their site today, it's down. It's a WordPress site. It's I mean, you look at this, this looks like a very high-end research project. This, image they have, you know, really to me reminds me of the things you're seeing over summer 2025. Some of these stories with, quantum stocks just rallying despite having no viable commercial technology in place yet. I think this is very simple. Like, what you're looking at here is not a viable commercial fusion nuclear reactor by any means. And I think it's obvious just looking at this. If you look down, you saw collaborators. It's very focused. You see California Irvine, UCLA, ITER, like just advanced research projects. Notably, what you're not seeing anywhere here is any industry player in the nuclear space. With you got Chevron involved, they're oil and gas, right? So you do have some participation, but you got Google funding this, et cetera. So that raises a huge question mark. Why are they not putting capital in? Don't want to compare this, but just right now, this thought clicked on my mind. Remember the Theranos situation. Um, you saw all kinds of deployment into Theranos, the now infamous blood testing diagnostic that was promising to be a test for everything, raised capital from, the Pentagon. I think some of the drugstore chains. I forget if it was uh, which pharmacies it was, but like Safeway, CVS, et cetera. I don't remember the exact investor base. They deployed capital into the Theranos project, but notably there were no other diagnostics, industry players or healthcare, venture funds throwing money into this project. Feels to me like this also raises to those same red flags. Like where's GE on this? Where's Hitachi, et cetera. That is, something I would want to see here if I'm an investor. So you see it in the stock price today. It rallied like the Trump media meme coin or meme stock rallied 40%. What's actually going on here, my opinion, is, with this deal announcement, the insiders are really generating exit liquidity primarily from the retail investor base, who by definition are viewing this project in terms of, um, maybe more rose-colored glasses, if you will. But I think the actual way to describe it is the less informed, right? They're not financial industry analysts who cover this sector, all of that, buying this stock. Um, it's really just fast money retail accounts looking for a pump. And I think, yeah, you get what you get. You'll get what you're going after. I guess we'll just put it that way. But just from background research, I've said this before, technical readiness, TAE has not yet demonstrated net energy gain. What does this mean? You get more energy out of your, test reactor than you're putting in. To make this commercial viable at the bare minimum, like you have to get energy flowing out of the reactor more than just going in. Otherwise, you're destroying value in the first place. There's also temperature requirements that are probably well beyond current capabilities to produce. I think I saw like something like 25x, maybe 50x. I'm not going to go deep into the technical details here. The point is, like, in terms of timeline reality, it seems to me, just based on the most cursory of research this morning following this headline, the actual timeline to deliver is probably much longer than even the rosy projections on the project chart that are being communicated and being bid today and reflected in that stock price. Um, the other thing is capital requirements. Part of the deal, it is a 50-50 M&A, if you will. But the amount of capital raised to build this commercial facility is $300 million, which I don't know, Cameron, about you, but 10, 20 years ago, that might have sounded like a decent chunk of money. I can just tell you right now, that's a drop in the bucket of what it would take to build like just to pour concrete, get the infrastructure, yeah, put the transformers down, build some
That's
special
less than putting
hardware, all
nets
of
underneath
that. Like,
the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco.
like in FW, this thing gets done. This commercial reactor gets built for 300 million. Just like doesn't even I don't think that number has any bearing in reality, especially in this inflationary environment. Um, what's actually happening here? um, this may be too cynical of me to go this far, but I think when you're dealing with this type of situation, uh, caution is always the best approach. Anybody investing into the DJT meme stock at this point, uh, you're an adult, you know what you're doing, you can make your own financial decisions. But the way I view this, right, this to me looks like a liquidity scheme. And I like to put this in context. There's been a lot of these same schemes done throughout history. Everybody does them. There's nothing new under the sun. But a hallmark, one of these is the South Sea Company. So as a parallel, there's a lot of things that rhyme with the things we're going through in our times, like the situation where the sovereign purse faces pressure, faces a funding squeeze. Um, you have a credit system that tries to accommodate it by fueling a bubble, largely on the backs of or on the back of the latest technology innovations of the day. It's the way this always tends to go, right? So South Sea Company, this was right about 1720. Um, it was a funding scheme. Essentially, the company purchased British or UK sovereign debt, British national debt at a discount, and then issued shares against that debt. And eventually, they really just through the same sort of headline generation, um, generated public appearance or public interest and the appearance of value on the stock chart in the run up to generate a kind of speculative frenzy, right? So notably, we go over this all the time. Isaac Newton lost his shirt on this. Even the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who you think would be an insider, right? Like got rinsed in this scheme. So as you're playing with fire in today's modern times, a lot of us only learn through the hard way, touching the hot stove. If we can save one person here, think about these things a little bit more diligently with their hard-earned capital, hopefully the better off. Um, so the scheme will look like it's succeeding temporarily. Because it is at its heart solving a government financing problem, right? You're funding the government debt, et cetera. It's not quite in this case with TAE and DJT Media. It's not buying the debt directly, but it's playing on that same layer of a financialized monetary, framework where just continuously generate the balance sheet expansion that it takes to purchase that government debt and keep the whole thing inflating. You got to build bubbles on top of the bubble, if you will. And I think that's what you're looking at here. So over the course of 20, 25 years, we've seen, over $1 billion of capital investment into this fusion technology. Like this goes back to 1998, right? Everybody putting money in, putting money in. It's never paid off or viably, right? It's always right around the corner, but uh-huh. Um, so rather than government debt, like in this case, that underlying asset is that speculative fusion technology that someone's got their cost basis like measured against that. Their capital is tied up in that illiquid project, which hasn't been able to achieve commercial exit in 20, 25 years. Is it going to next year? That's the promise, right? Is it likely to? That's what's up for debate. Um, but effectively, what this deal does is it creates an immediate paper valuation for those TAE shareholders at effectively, this says $53.89 per share, which is, I think it's about a 300% markup over its most recent funding rounds in 2022. So what you're looking at here is exit liquidity of an illiquid private instrument onto the retail investing public or public markets. Notably, I'd call out the price discovery is not taking place through financial statement reporting, rigorous analysis of, say, institutional investors. It's all taking place through Trump media's own volatile stock and just retail investor enthusiasm, tied to just meme stock mania, as we've seen play out on multiple examples now since 2020, 2021. So I'll leave it there, but that's my opinion of what's most likely going on and what to watch for. I'm just gonna, color me shocked in the future when we find out Devin Nunes doesn't know exactly what he's doing as a co-CEO of a cutting edge nuclear fusion development company.
Or
We'll
maybe
just
we'll
say
all be
that. So
pleasantly
if you look at
surprised
this,
with unlimited clean free energy.
yes, that's the hopeful version, right? Things always play out. The trees grow to the sky. But yeah, if you look at the stock, you see a pump here, up 40% roughly overnight. Looks great for short-term holders. If you zoom out though and look at the DJT stock chart, there's a lot of people, hey, Bitcoin's had a bad year, all this stuff, right? This DJT, stock that came out of a SPAC in 2022, really to greenlight the project of the Truth Social social media platform, right? Competing with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, kind of the legacy, more Silicon Valley controlled social media networks. If we zoom out, remember 2020, 2021, 2022 era, Trump was booted off of all of those social media platforms. So that was the first kind of business angle that or just market that this company said it was going after. It struggled, especially as X with Elon Musk really pivoting into or positioning themselves as the kind of the alternate to the broadly VC owned or Silicon Valley dominated social media kind of platform companies. We've seen a fracturing in the social media space, I would say, over the last 2 to 3 years, where most people along the political spectrum are self-selecting into their own, just call it reality bubbles. And you've seen over that time the true social kind of business model not working out as intended, just as that market has evolved over the last 2 to 3 years. Now you see a pivot into apparently a social media and nuclear fusion conglomerate. This promises to be, let's just say, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it won't be boring.
Yeah.
We'll just put it at that.